Hello, my PPs, and welcome to Turnglish. I'm Larry Chambers, and I'll be your host and practice partner throughout these videos. When I first came to Turkey in 1990, I found that Turks are very friendly and hospitable people, and that most speak at least a little English. I quickly made lots of new friends here, and soon made another discovery. My Turkish friends' English was very good in general, and I could easily understand them, in spite of a few minor mistakes. But as time went by, I began to notice something very interesting. Everybody makes mistakes, but we're all individuals, so each of us tends to make different mistakes from everyone else. But I'd traveled all over the country, and Turks seemed to repeat the same mistakes nationwide. I was intrigued. What happened? Did millions of Turks have a meeting one day and agree to all make the same grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation mistakes? That seemed unlikely. I began keeping track of the mistakes that Turks made in common when they spoke English. As I got to know more about the Turkish language, culture, and education system, I slowly began to understand why they all made these same mistakes. My list now has dozens of entries, and in this series of videos, I'm going to share them all with you. In each video, I'll cover one common mistake. I'll give you examples of the mistake along with corrections, so you can easily see where the problem is. I'll explain the reason or reasons that so many Turks make that same mistake. And I'll suggest steps you can take to stop making that mistake. Before we begin, it will save a lot of time if I explain the two most common reasons and the two most common solutions here. Then I won't have to repeat them in every video. That would just be boring for you. And for me. The first reason for most of these mistakes is the Turkish education system, which uses rote memorization in most of its teaching. In foreign language lessons, Turkish students memorize thousands of vocabulary words and hundreds of grammar rules. But memorization is the worst way to learn for two reasons. One, it's the easiest method. And something learned easily is also easily forgotten. And two, you often don't understand the things that you learn that way. Another problem with the Turkish education system is one that probably all countries face in their schools' foreign language departments. Not enough native speaker teachers. If you learn a foreign language from a non-native speaker, you can be sure you're learning it wrong, no matter how good the teacher is. And I say that as an American who has taught Turkish. In Turkey, we have generations of Turks learning English from other Turks, who also learned English from other Turks, and so on. It's no surprise then that they make so many mistakes in common. The mistakes have become institutionalized. The second common reason, along with the education system, is the fact that people tend to learn a new language by word-for-word or literal translation. This is bad too, because many words don't have exact translations. For example, many English adjectives are verbs in Turkish. Turks use the English adjectives like verbs because that's what they're used to doing with those words in Turkish. But this can change or even destroy the meaning of the sentence. Also, Turks learn to translate tenses, which is dangerous for communication because we often use our tenses differently in English from the way you use their equivalents in Turkish. Again, the meaning can be changed or completely lost. The two ways of correcting the mistakes? Pay attention and practice. Unlike foreign language students in English-speaking countries, Students of the English language all over the world have an advantage in that English is so widely available and accessible. To demonstrate this, simply go to Google and search for the answer to any question in Turkish, then ask the same question in English and see how many more results you get. So how can you use this to your benefit? By paying close attention to the way native English speakers use their language. Watch a movie on Netflix or a video on YouTube and notice how they use the words and phrases you were taught in school. If native speakers use the terms differently from the way you were taught, stop speaking English the way you were taught and start copying the native speakers. The second method for correcting mistakes is the method you should have been using to learn English in the first place: by practice. How did you learn Turkish? Did your mother teach you nouns, adverbs, and conjunctions while she changed your diaper? Of course not. You learned by listening and copying the things you heard your parents say. You spent the first 5 or 6 years of your life practicing your native language before you went to school. Then, in school, you learned how to read and write. And finally, they taught you Turkish grammar. So why, when we learn a foreign language, does everybody in the world start by studying that language's grammar, then how to read and write in that language, and lastly, maybe getting a little bit of practice speaking and listening? It's all backward. When you learn something new in a language, any language, practice it. Say a new word or phrase in different sentences. Role play different situations where you'd need to use a specific grammar point. Use it or lose it, folks. Use it or lose it. So the two most common reasons for all these common mistakes are the education system of learning by memorization from non-native speakers and learning by literal translation. And the two best ways for correcting most common mistakes are paying attention to the way native speakers communicate and practicing everything that you learn. In another series of videos, I'll show you some exercises you can use while practicing to develop the skills you need to think in English and communicate well in this crazy language. But for now, let's move on to our first video about common mistakes made by Turkish students of the English language. We're going to start with grammar mistakes, namely with incorrect tenses. See you soon!